The transmission is ready over here, so we're ready to install it. I do need to drop the car a little bit because my transmission jack doesn't go as high. To drop the transmission, I'm going to have to drop the car again to install it. So let's go ahead and bring it down, and then let's install the transmission. Let's pick her up. Right now I don't have the transfer case on the back of it, but we can easily install that after we get the transmission installed. Now I do need to remind you, I don't recommend installing the torque converter dry. I put about a quart of transmission fluid in my torque converter. Next, I'm going to put the torque converter on. It's not on yet. I'm going to put it on before I install it on the transmission. But I recommend you put about a quart of transmission oil in the torque converter before you install it, okay, so that you don't install it dry. So let me go get it and install the transmission, and then we're going to go ahead and install the transmission to the engine. It's heavy. See that dripping? Maybe I should have put about half a quart or so, but it should be okay. So I'm going to wait for this to drip, done dripping, and then I'm going to pick it up and install it and get a tissue to clean it up. So here we are, looking for you guys to see. Everything is ready to go. Let's go ahead and pick it up. I'm going to clean it up because I don't feel like sleeping today. Slipping and falling is part of my agenda today. I do need to make sure this is right in the middle, okay? So I'm going to scoot it over a little bit to the left side. I do need to get all these wires out of here. So I may need to drop the car a bit because I don't know if my transmission can actually get that high. My jack can get it high. But if I do need to, I will. Now what I need to do, I need to make sure that I get a light right in the middle here so I can make sure the two are aligned properly before I install it. So let me get a light. The transmission is mated to the engine. It's sitting basically on the locating pins on the engine. It's not tightened to both torque spec or anything yet. I'll do that here shortly, but I will provide the torque spec as well, so you guys can have that. But now I'm just going to go around and just kind of tighten it a little bit, just enough, and I'll do the torque spec later. I think what I want to do next is to bring the support here back so I can support transmission and get rid of the transmission jack. That's going to give me more room to tighten the torque converter. Okay, so let me do that. All right, guys, what I want to do next is to install the bracket that sits here so it can support this guy, and then I can take the transmission stand off, and then that's going to give me more room to tighten my torque converter. Okay, so let's do that next. I'm going to install the bracket. I'm missing something here. There's a piece here that needs to go on, so I need to put that on first. Honestly, what I like to do is just get this out of the way. All right, here it is. It's some kind of transmission mount. I'm going to install that. I'm going to do the other side. This is pretty heavy. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put the other bolts in. What I need to do is to get I think these are 16 millimeters. I need to get a 16 millimeter socket and an extension so I can have enough room here to work on this, because this isn't the easiest thing to do. There's not much room here to get my fingers in. Now, this isn't going to be permanent because remember, I need to get the exhaust in there. I mean, I could have used the transmission jack for that, but I really don't want it in the way. I'm just using this to hold it in place while I tightened the top converter. I just want this to be there, hold it in place while I tighten the top converter. I will take it off again later. And I don't want to use the impact for this. I want to do this all by hand because I don't want to cross any threads. I don't feel like dealing with cleaning threads and all that. I feel much better with this in place. I'm using my tall jack stand. So now I can safely drop the transmission onto the bracket and move on to the torque converter. For that, I need to release this and that. The job here is done. Just double checking to make sure that bracket is secure because I'm gonna rest the transmission on it. I'm going to take this off now. Ready to come off. Release it slowly. Now onto the torque converter. So right now I need to line up the bolts, the mounting holes for the torque converter with the holes for the flex plate. Now to do that, just make sure you don't tighten the bolts for the transmission to engine tightly because you need to line them up. If you tighten them too much, it'll make it difficult to move both the flex plate and the torque converter at the same time. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the engine and then I'm going to use a pry bar to kind of wedge, to kind of restrain the torque converters until I kind of line them up. I have my ratchet here. It's got a 27mm socket on top of it and it's on my harmonic balancer bolt, and I'm going to use this to kind of prevent the torque converter from turning up there. And then once everything lines up, I can tighten those bolts. So let me send it back up. The bolts are not tightened, all the way. So there's a little gap between the engine and the transmission still. And I need to do that to prevent the torque converter, so that the torque converter and the flex plate can move at different rates, if you like. I need to line the two bolts up. So you can see I'm holding the torque converter back. Let me see if you guys can see. I'm holding the torque converter back from moving, but I'm moving the flex plate. I'm going to do that till the holes line up. See right there, the holes are starting to line up. Okay, I need to go just a little bit more and the holes will line up. I think it's good to go in terms of putting a bolt right in the middle. Let me see if you guys can see it. There, I think it's set up. Right there, it's lined up now. Okay, so I can go ahead and put my first bolt in. Once I have one bolt in, the rest should line up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and install my first bolt right there. Now I can turn it a little bit more and put the second one in, because now they are coupled, if you like. And tightened, I can go ahead and tighten the transmission to engine bolts. And this is the best way that I found to do this. I want to put all the bolts in first before I tighten them. So I'm going to keep going around and putting all the torque converter bolts in. So I'll go ahead and do all of them and I'll bring you guys back, okay? You gotta do all this by finger tightening, because the last thing you wanna do is to strip these bolts. It's gonna be a pain trying to repair that. I got that one. Turn it a little bit to give me access to the other one. All right. I'm just going to put my fingers here and feel for when the next pair of bolts come along. They're almost there. Okay, I can feel one of them. Now let me do that one. Oh, not yet. A little bit more. Okay, for the other one. forget, there are 6 bolts. We gotta go around and do all of them, okay? Now that I have my torque converter bolts in place and they're tightened, I'm just gonna go around the transmission itself and just finish off those bolts that made the transmission. Okay guys, so now it's time to tighten the transmission bolts, transmission to engine bolts. Those going at these ones, okay? These ones right here, and right here, and all around. Those going at 30 foot-pounds, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. We've got all the transmission bolts tightened. All right guys, so now I have the transfer case here. It's time to install that. I put these wooden blocks here to prevent it from tipping backwards. I mean, it's not heavy, but I don't really want to put my back into it like that because, you know, even though it's light, if you hold it long enough, it's going to get heavy. So I'm going to use the transmission jack to lift it up to the level of transmission and then install it. Okay, so let's do that. I think I'm going to pick it up a little bit to have more leverage to push it in. So it's hard to get a ratchet in and around the transfer case. So I'm using a stubby wrench right here just to get everything, all the bolts seated. And then after that, I'll figure out how to get my ratchet in there to tighten things up. But this is helping me to get the bolts seated. Every time I tighten the bolts up a little bit, I hit this a little bit to reseat it so that I don't put too much stress on the threads. Okay, so now that the transmission is installed, what I want to do next is install the starter motor because it's really tight in there. So I want to do that now that there is space for it. Okay, so let's install the starter motor. I think I need to take the back out. I'll need to install the wiring before I put this in there because there's no room to install the wiring once I put this in there. So let's go to come back out. I can install the wiring first. This is the ignition wire. I'm looking for the other one. Battery positive wire. Oh, there it is. I need to get the ignition wire in. So when it comes to the starter motor, to install it, you have to first fully install it without the thick power wire, and then set it back slightly, and then put the wire on it, and then put your bolt on it. If you try to install it with the wire on it tightened, that's going to be really difficult. So that is the best way to do that. So the thing with the starter motor is it can be very difficult to install it if you install both wires and tighten them before you try to install the motor. What you need to do is install the thin wire, the ignition wire, fully and tighten that. And then for the thick wire, just put the thick wire on and then just screw the nut on very loosely. Then install the motor, okay? So the wire can move around and be more flexible while you try to install it. When you're done with that, tip the motor back slightly and use your ratchet, preferably a 1/4-inch ratchet, to tighten the nut on the big wire properly. All right, so now the starter motor is installed. Next thing I want to do is install the transmission cooler lines that go into the radiator. So from here to the radiator, and then from the other side as well into the radiator. So let's do that. Here's the first one. These, gotta be careful not to bend them. So I'm gonna go pretty much straight. And you do have to rotate them as you go to make sure you don't bend them. Because if you rotate them, you can actually route them pretty nicely to the front of the vehicle. So that's what I'm trying to do. So, looking good. Now, sometimes getting these in can be a pain. I'm gonna put some transmission fluid around the O-ring. And before that, I'm gonna clean it nicely and then put transmission fluid around it, and then I'm gonna knock it in. Put some fluid right here on my fingers. I'm gonna try to probably clean that hole too, I forgot. All right. There we go. So the way that I do this, if I can get it to go in, is I use my O2 sensor socket. So let me get and show you how I do it. All right, so I have my O2 sensor socket right here. I'm gonna put that over that. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a knock, not much. Maybe this one. This is not wide enough. All right, so I have my transmission cooler line laid out here. I just need to get it inside. I'm gonna put the screw that goes in here, just to kind of hold it a little bit in. There. The screw is going to help me line it up nicely. All right. Now we can try and knock it in. Okay, it did work. Just an oxygen sensor socket and put on top of that and knock it right in. I'm not going to tighten that yet until I have all the brackets and everything. You know, this is also held by brackets, not just this bracket and this bolt here. So I am going to make sure, see if you can see it right there. I need to make sure all the other brackets are holding it in place before I tighten everything. Let's check the other brackets. Before that, let's put the other side on, and then we'll check the brackets and make sure everything is tightened down. The other one goes from here, and then, like I said, you just gotta put this in and just allow it to route itself pretty much. You just rotate it as you push it in, and as you kind of lay it out, and it will figure itself out. So I'm gonna put this right here. Again, we got to clean this out, clean that hole, put some transmission fluid on there, and then we will knock it in. I'm gonna switch out my gloves for new ones now. Do that. I think this will work. But before that, I want to use the bolt again to line it up. and knock this. I'm going to take it out and just do it as is. This is better. You gotta sometimes allow the job to tell you what to do. Gotta shake this a little bit. Get the bolt to seat well. All right. I need to route this to make sure it's routed and connected to the radiator first, and then I'm gonna go along the length of both tubes to make sure the brackets are restraining them or holding them down. Just in case you don't take note of it, the transmission cooler line on the right side of the vehicle is the one that goes up, and the one on the left side of the vehicle goes down when you get to the radiator. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. And this brings us to the end of part 3. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share, and turn on notifications for when I upload future videos. See you in part 4.